To the Do Good Work podcast. Today we are talking to Jeroen Corthout. Jeroen is a co-founder and CEO of Salesflare, an intelligent CRM built for SMBs, selling B2B, most popular with agencies and fast-growing startup companies. So Salesflare was founded to solve the main problem to allow sales teams and leaders to follow up with their leads in an easier way. They didn't like manual tracking, manual entry into databases. So they created a solution which automatically pulls in data together for sales teams and help them actively follow up, focusing more on the activity versus less on the actual back end reporting and manual entry. It's now one of the most popular CRMs on Product Hunt and a top rated on review platforms like G2 for its ease of use and automation features. And Jeroen and the team are on a mission to make sales and CRMs more human again, which is a huge proponent to my thesis of the future of business is human. In this podcast, I'd love for you to pay attention towards Jeroen's story as he shares around some tips around consulting and how that can actually help you if you're looking to grow into a new area of business or create a new product. In addition to the trifecta that he recommends you follow in order to have these three things aligned when you're going all in on a product and a business. And finally, his emphasis on leading with empathy, especially when creating a software product. So I hope you enjoy this episode with Jeroen. As always, do good work. Jeroen, it's great to have you on.
It's great to be here.
So backtracking to one of my stories that I was growing up in entrepreneurship is I actually wanted to start straight out of college to start a software company. And that was my intention. I joined an online program. I got within community. I took a lot of client calls or like discovery calls to understand what is happening in the markets that I wanted to serve to create a software from. I mean, we pivoted and created, marketing services instead because there were a bigger need for sales and leads in the markets we were in. But SaaS is still something, it's like maybe a future baby that we'll work on, but you're doing it right now. And I'd love to know a little bit more about, your background, why, go into a very crowded market and what it really looks like to compete with giants, because there's some really big players in your space.
Yeah, that's funny. I actually never thought I was going to start a software company. I mean, I might have been able to predict, but um, my first time that I actually felt a little like an entrepreneur was when I was 15, 16 or so. I started building websites. It all started with this with playing around with GeoCities, which was this thing with which you could very easily build websites, like the very primitive ones that had little tickers and counters at the bottom and an image here and there, but nothing much else. And then I discovered Flash, and with Flash you could build anything, like moving stuff, made noise. You could like style it the way you wanted to. It's super powerful. Flash doesn't exist anymore today. It's been completely taken over by HTML5, which does all of these things without using an enormous amount of processing power and without needing specific plugins on your computer. So, but for me, Flash was all the rage in the day. I was building websites there. I built one for myself and for my mom, and then things started rolling, and I built one for a few other people. And then I thought, like, wow, later on, I'm going to have a web design agency. I was sort of on the track to become an engineer. That was always my track. My dad is a hardcore engineer, led R&D organizations at Philips mostly, um, and he raised us as kids to become engineers. Um, so I always knew I was going that direction. So I thought computer engineering, right? I went to the open day. I saw a lot of nerdy kids and things that I didn't really connect with. And I thought, computer engineering is not for me. Um, so I ended up doing electrical engineering and business management and switched to biomedical engineering also for my master's, which was way more interesting. It felt more like I was going to do something for the world. And also I could learn about all this cool stuff because I also had a lot of medical courses. Um, but then when I started applying for jobs, I felt that I didn't want to do something like me building something in a back room or so. I wanted to build something with people. That's what I've been doing until then. It was the websites, but it was also I had this second-hand cell phone business going on, where I would find cheap second-hand phones somewhere and then sell them to people who wanted to pay a bit more expensive. A very simple model, but it was a lot of fun for me because I love cell phones and I just love to have the latest one also for me. Um, and I made a little money of it, so it was good. But then these jobs, like me behind a computer, building something, never talking to anyone, that just didn't appeal to me. So at some point, I gave up on the job search and I applied for business school. And actually, business school made that I could make a complete switch because after business school, I went straight into a marketing job with the knowledge in my head that I wanted to start my own company, but also knowing that, thinking that I didn't have the background needed. I didn't have the experience. So I wanted to go into a big company and sort of lead a little small part of that, put a product in the market, feel how that worked. And then based on that experience, I thought I could start a small company. Now, I started in a pharma company called Baxter. I was responsible for 3 vaccines, and I helped. Yeah, one of them was a flu vaccine. It's quite topical nowadays. Um, and I helped some of my colleagues because I was a junior one with their more blood plasma products for hemophilia, etc. But it was really not like putting a product in the market. It was more like executing a strategy which had been made way up. Um, I basically, my only freedom was taking a brochure that the European branch had made, translating it to 2 languages because we speak Dutch and French here, making sure it lined up, maybe cutting it up a bit, and then teaching the sales team on how to use it. Imagine that as my responsibilities. Not really what I signed up for. So I didn't do that very long. I actually joined a consultancy that helps pharma companies to become more digital, which sort of merged my building websites with my newfound knowledge of pharma marketing, which I did for 4 years and which was a really great experience. I would really recommend doing some consulting to become an entrepreneur because you don't necessarily build a product, which was what I was dreaming of. Um, but you get in touch with customers. I would actually find them myself. I would talk to them and find out what their issues were. I tried to understand that, come up with a good solution, make a presentation for that, like a whole proposal, bring it to them, calculate a budget, a project plan, make sure that internally other people, we have project managers and stuff as well, but then make that happen, design some external parties, all that with the responsibility towards the customer until actually the invoice was paid, which is sort of like being an entrepreneur, but then not on your own risk,
Yeah.
let's say. And that was really cool. I did that for 4 years, but then of course the itch stayed, and after 2 years or so, I already felt like, oh, I know this. I know how it works. It starts getting boring. So I started trying to start a company. But like many people who try to start something, I was very much stuck in that phase where I was thinking like, what am I going to start?
Mm.
What what can I do that's going to be worth it? Needs to be this perfect idea. I'm not going to talk to anyone about it.
Mhm.
And when I launch it, it's going to take over the world. But you see all these things out there, and I think, oh, that's already tried, and that's already tried, and they come up with something really crazy, and I think, yeah, that's never going to work. So I
Yeah.
stayed in the States for quite a while, until I found out about the Founder Institute, which was this accelerator that said basically like, you join us, we'll get you through all the steps, and we guarantee that at the end you have a company.
Oh,
So otherwise you don't graduate. So it's more like an ID driven accelerator.
mhm,
I had a really dumb idea. Um, which I was going to automate moving administration
mhm.
in Belgium because I had just moved and I hated the process. I didn't understand why in all these different places I had to fill out the exact same thing, and I couldn't just go to one website and say I want to move. What's the best energy provider? What's the best this and that? And it would be arranged for me. That was my dream, and I wanted to make that dream happen. Now, when I pitched that to the founder of the Founder Institute, he gave me a big fat one for my
Uh-huh.
idea, almost a zero, because he said like Belgium is too small, it's never gonna work, it's not. And I was kind of relieved because it was not a problem I was actually passionate about, and just to see me day in day out automating moving administration for other people would have been dreadful because it's the thing I hate myself so much. So it would have been a really, really bad idea. So at that point, I learned that actually I should solve a problem that I'm really passionate about, and passionate about, like passionate in the sense like I really want to work on solving it, and also for a group of people that I really want to solve it for. Because if these two things click, then I can do it for a very long time. Now, you don't just find these things. And what I learned then after that is actually that these things only come to you sort of when you're already in motion. And then you need to try a few things before you actually find the thing. The period I spent like thinking about stuff, like what am I going to start actually, I was very like entrepreneur style, not doing anything and not getting forward. Now, the moment that I started starting things and most often failed, that's when I learned stuff because I was doing things and I want to do it better. But that's when I also got in touch with more things. Um,
As you
because
get
what
in
happened?
motion. Yeah, as you get in
Yeah,
motion, you learn. But I do want to pause for a second because I want to talk about a few key things that you brought up, and I kind of want to give a framework for the audience. First, you got a lot of exposure through consulting because you were able to go into the business and understand actual business process. So I think that could be a key takeaway right now for anyone. If you are in consulting or you want to consider a different line of work, to identify what can I be consulting on. And it's interesting because I see a lot of entrepreneurs who build their best products because either they're bored or like their work isn't as stimulating enough and they want that next big problem to solve. And make sure that you don't fall into the classical entrepreneurial issues of like not talking to customers, keeping an idea secret, like go out there and take
yeah,
action. Because, like you just mentioned, you take action, you see some sort of result. If it's short term, that's okay, but that keeps you going to see more result that compounds. But I do want to build this talk about this framework that you just mentioned, and this is actually relating back to Jim Collins's hedgehog concept that there has to be a trifecta or three overlapping circles as like a Venn diagram is what does the market need? What am I genuinely good at and care about, like your passions? Like, what am I good at? What does the market need? And what's that possible solution? And when those overlap, then you have something that could potentially be a product market fit. But not only that, it's a product founder fit. Because if you're a founder working in the market with a product you're not going to be a founder very long. So
yeah,
I like that you outlined that as well. It's like, what do I care about? Who do I want to work with? Let's transition now to identifying how you went from, you know, not talking to customers and then now actually focusing specifically with an industry where a majority of it is relationships and conversations.
yeah. I must say that the Jim Collins framework is really nice for companies, but I think for an entrepreneur, I would slightly adapt it. I would say, what problem could you spend all day solving? like something you're really passionate about, you think like this could be better, it should be better, and I know I can do it. Secondly, for whom? Uh, just to give you an example, we build CRM systems, right? We could do that for real estate people, but I do not particularly, that it's not the sort of friends I have. It's nothing against people in real estate, but I just don't connect with them. It's not my sort of personality type. So if I had to be in touch with them every day, that would be dreadful. I would be solving an issue I'm passionate about, but not with people that I like and that I want to connect with, because a lot of it is solving that issue with people. So that's the second thing that's very important. And then third, straight out of Jim Collins, is can I also make money with it?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
that's very important. Yeah.
Has to be sustainable. Has to be sustainable with that. So, what drove you to actually focusing in the sales ecosystem, and how did you start engaging with customers to develop the feedback loops that you needed to create a CRM system in a very crowded industry? Because there's some big players in this field.
Yeah. Um, it mainly started from a deep-seated frustration with CRM systems. It seemed like everyone was frustrated.
Mhm.
I didn't understand how that was possible. Like, we have software, we can solve stuff. Why don't we? Um, I had been using Salesforce for 4 or 5 years in the pharma companies where we worked. That was the new thing. They came from Siebel, which was even more horrible. So they were happy they were getting on Salesforce. But then still they got Salesforce and they didn't use it. And then it was like all the work we had done was like they just didn't use it. Even internally, we use Salesforce, of course, because we use it with clients as well. And we used it to the minimum. Like, we would put companies and contacts in there only if there was an opportunity at the very beginning. We'd make a company and a contact, we make the opportunity, and it could be in the pipeline, so for the forecasts, the leaderboards and all that. Point. Nothing else happened in there. So we wouldn't add new contacts as we met them. Or sometimes you think about, like, oh my God, it would be good if that person was in a newsletter, put them on Salesforce, check the newsletter checkbox. But at some point, they started telling us like, no, you should put calls in or meetings in Salesforce, 10 a month. Then everybody started like putting 10 a month. Basically, at the end of the month, you had this little thingy in your calendar that said, oh, don't forget to put some stuff in the Salesforce. You put in your 10, and management was happy. But it wasn't used for what I thought it was going to be used for, which was for sales follow-up. It seemed more like a management reporting tool than anything else. And now that was all fun, but then when we were working by ourselves on another software company, so we had this company that sold business intelligence software to large enterprises. We had gone to a large conference and we had something like 130 leads, and they were all very interested. Now we just had to close those deals, but they were in business intelligence, so it's these people that need to do an enormous amount of follow up before they agree and implement. And we were trying different systems to organize that, and we didn't really find anything. Like, we found solutions that were better than Salesforce, thank God, more built for salespeople, but nothing that came without that um, that expectation that we would fill it out all day with every detail manually, every little thing we saw in the CRM, like somebody else is copied in on an email. Oh God, I need to put that person in the CRM. What's their details? Oh, there's an email signature. Copy it in.
So
Oh, I found
all
some.
the manual work you weren't liking. So then how did that
Yeah.
accelerate to actually creating the app though? So really curious how you found a niche within this, but there has to be a unique value proposition to this as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. So what we found is that all these CRMs, they just come with the idea that you're going to manually fill them out,
Hmm.
which is I mean, you could say, sure. I mean, salespeople just need to do it. If they don't do it, you take their bonus away, and everything will work. But from a purely human standpoint, it doesn't make sense.
Mm,
Nobody can has the discipline and the energy and all that's required to do that perfectly.
mm.
At least not on the long run. Nobody is that strong. Some people are. I mean, I've met a few, but um, and then your sales system falls apart, which is extremely bad uh, for you as a salesperson. It is extremely bad for your sales manager trying to coach you because the information is not in there. Forecasts are off. The marketing sends stuff to your prospects because they're not in the system, all this kind of stuff. Anyway, um, we figured that we could automate that, just pull all the information from where it already was, because we found that people were basically copying information from here to there. And we said, if we just integrate the email inbox, the calendar, the phone, company databases, email tracking, website tracking, and make a system that dynamically connects these things in a way that you can just accept some suggestions and it does it, then we make it much lighter on salespeople to then actually do their work, because their actual work is not the all the data inputs. Their actual work is using the data that the data input creates to inform their sales process, to do good follow up, because it's very easy to basically sell to one person and take them through your sales pipeline or buying pipeline. But to do that with many at once is very hard. And you need some sort of system, and a system that you need to put an enormous amount of energy in to maintain will never work for that purpose, which makes that to follow up sales at scale, you need something that takes on a lot of that work for you. And that's what we intended to build 7 years ago, and we have been building ever since. It's a sort of CRM that works.
No, I love that you led with empathy too. Like you identify that no one is going to actually discipline, and I see that too with my sales teams, or like the some of the teams I help on sales. Is there needs to be the reporting needs to be done automatically from a human action. If I call someone, it needs to be automatically logged into the report. If I see someone's LinkedIn profile, automatically lagged, because that's the best way to do sales management, and then also pipeline management. How has it been competing since you've been doing this for the last 7 years, competing in this space? And what are some of the trends that you're seeing, but also what are you doing to proactively keep yourself valuable in the marketplace and separated from the sea? Because there's if anyone searches CRM on the Google bar right now, they'll come up with at least 12 different options.
Yeah, many more. Yeah. If you go on g2.com now, there's I think 700. I think we just crossed it.
Yeah, but just
Um,
in the first page, if you're just searching for like CRMs, Google will only show you a certain amount, but there's like you mentioned,
oh yeah, yeah. But then
thousands of
you
options out there.
type and you get all these listings, and then PC Magazine will tell you to choose those, and then whatever HubSpot has made their own page to tell you that HubSpot is the best,
Yep.
and then there's CRM.org that will sell you another 18, and then there's yeah, it's like and you get totally lost. And the thing is also the first ones you will see are not necessarily the ones that are best for you. Those are the ones that have the most money. That's just how this whole game works, because all of the things you're going to see are all paid. Now where we try to make a difference is to, yeah, first of all, we try to work with these blogs to be listed in these places, because that's, well, that's one of the
SEO
things we can.
strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's more of a partnership strategy in the sense.
Mhm.
We work to get our reviews high. It's not too hard. We just ask our happy customers to review us, and we try to do that on a regular basis. Which then, if you check us out on review sites, you will get nice scores, but also very nice explanations of why you should choose Salesflare over others. That's a second part of where we get a lot of leads. Actually, the main source of leads we get is from just happy customers referring other ones, word of mouth. And then The last one, so there was the first one. In between, we have the review sites and the blog listings and stuff. The last place from where we get customers is our content marketing. We write about a lot of very specific topics that attracts a lot of traffic. Some of these articles are very top of funnel, get a lot of traffic but little leads, and some of them are quite more bottom of the funnel, which directly lead to leads. What we focus on there is creating more quality content when it comes to like competing with these giants. What we cannot do is compete on backlinks because,
Yeah,
well,
that's a lot of the SEO stuff too, but how are you competing on the product side? Like, how are you continually shipping new
okay,
features, and what are the features that are important to your users? Because this is not a one CRM for every team. This is a specific use case, I believe, for B2B, correct?
yeah, it's specific for B2B. Indeed, that is one of the ways we keep it simple. It's a sales CRM for B2B companies, small and medium-sized ones, not enterprises or so.
Mhm.
And it's mostly actually agencies and tech companies. So
Nice.
that way we can be very clear on what sort of functionality is needed.
Mhm.
Uh, we do a whole lot of tracking of what sort of issues people have, what sort of improvements they would like to see, what sort of big features they would like to see. Do a lot of prioritization around that, and then to make a difference with the big ones, we also communicate around that in a very organized and personal way. In the sense that if you are on our software and you ask us tomorrow, well, it would be good if this and that, it will go in our system that you said that. And at the moment that our developers actually put it live, then one of our people also reach out to you again and say, hey, you asked this then. We just put this live. Have a look at it. What do you think about it? Do you have some
Almost like a
feedback?
custom dev. That's kind of cool. It's like having a custom dev team work on what you need.
Yeah, and it's about that communication going on. One of the ways we try to make a real difference versus our competitors is not just by having a product like I explained that automates all these things, and but it's also building better relationships with our customers
Mhm.
because that's something they find much harder to do at scale. Plus, also having much more quality support because that's also something that is much harder for them at scale.
Mhm.
um, we we can still do things like in a way that we know everything about everything. And
No, I love that, and it's pretty cool to see your like head-to-head comparisons with some of the big names out there, like Salesforce, Pipedrive, HubSpot. Like, there's a lot. You guys are outperforming in some areas. He's just looking at the G2 side. So, when it comes to future developments for what you're doing, like where do you see Salesflare going? Not only finishing this year, 2021, at the time of the recording, but over the next 5 to 10 years. Like, what are some of the trends, the horizons that you want to reach? If you can share that with us.
yeah, so towards the end of this year and beyond that, we're working on building more sort of leads functionality in Salesforce. So we find that a lot of our customers use LinkedIn, um, and there's no good connection. And we've been in lots of talks with LinkedIn to do something about that, but they're not really willing to collaborate. So we are doing something on our own. It's going to be a sort of LinkedIn sidebar with which I can go on your profile, say Raul, he works at the company, and then I say like, oh, what's his email address? Salesforce find it for me, add to the CRM, send them an email, boom. So that's coming soon. After that, a sort of lead search, because in our software you have the CRM part and you also have an emailing part, which quite some people use for email outreach, but then they still need to get the leads. So who are they going to contact? That's something we intend to add as well, with better quality data that you'll find in most other lead data systems.
Okay.
In general, CRM is becoming more of a work tool than it used to be a database, if that makes sense. There was this evolution from it being a sort of a flat database where like just put customer information in. People wouldn't even put emails in it and stuff. That was dumb. To something where actually the communication timeline became the main thing, because actually communication is what defines a relationship. So that only makes sense. And the customer data is secondary. Now, when that happens, and you actually start selling through a CRM or with a CRM, then it becomes a sales tool. And there's been all these sales tools popping up in the past 10 years or so, uh, like disconnected from CRMs.
Yeah.
In the enterprise space, they may stay disconnected to a certain extent because Salesforce and all. But in the small and medium sized businesses, all these things will become one. You'll see that these systems either become CRMs or CRMs absorb these things. Well, both things happen basically.
Interesting.
So it Salesflare will become even more of a sales platform than it is today, with even more data flowing through it. And then, if we're really talking about a slightly longer horizon, this also makes it possible to do really, really good automation, and to employ AI, where AI is really getting to a point now that we can start using it. We've been laying the base with having lots of data that's well structured, a lot of things happening through the software. When you have this sort of situation, then you can bring in AI. If you have no data, if you have no action on your app, it's very hard. But when there's this really good flow going on, that's when AI can also start making a difference.
That's really cool because so much in not reporting, but also on the not automation, but predictive actions and workflows that can be created from prospecting. So this is really cool. I think Jeroen, for our audience out there, what's the best place for people to reach out to you? Thank you for this episode and learn more about what you're doing and Salesflare.
For Salesflare, it's just simple salesflare.com, and Flare is Flare. You can read about the software. You can see it even if you click try it free. And we have a blog also with a lot of sales advice. To get in touch with me, LinkedIn is the best place. Just type my name into LinkedIn. I'm sure you'll find it somewhere around the episode. There's only one person with my name, so you can't miss. Send me a connection request, but don't forget to add a personal message. If you don't add a personal message, I will assume spam, because that's what it usually is. But if you add a personal message, I will certainly get in touch with you and we can have a chat.
Cool. Let them know that you heard him on the Do Good Word podcast. Well, Jeroen, it's a pleasure. Thank you for being on, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. This was fun.